If you are 55 to 75 years old, don't tell your children these 7 secrets. Especially number 7, as we age. There's a natural tendency to feel like we should open up and share everything with our children. After all, we've lived long, rich lives full of experiences, lessons learned, and emotions that have shaped us. Whether it's our financial successes, personal struggles, or the memories we hold dear, the instinct to pass on our wisdom and thoughts to our loved ones is strong. But have you ever stopped to consider whether there might be things that are better left unsaid? Sometimes the secrets we hold aren't born out of malice or fear, they're simply pieces of our lives that, if revealed, might cause stress, guilt, or even unnecessary misunderstandings. It's not about hiding the truth, but rather about protecting the peace and well-being of both ourselves and our families. You see, there are certain things that, when shared, could shift the dynamics of our relationships, create unexpected burdens, or lead to worries that don't need to be there. In today's video, we're going to explore 7 powerful secrets that many older adults choose to keep private from their children. These aren't dark, shameful secrets, far from it. But they are deeply personal truths that, if shared, might lead to more harm than good. By the end of this video, you'll understand why these secrets are better left in the past, and why sometimes keeping them to yourself can be the healthiest choice for everyone involved. And trust me, the last secret we'll talk about is truly a game changer. It might just shift the way you think about aging and your relationship with your children forever. So, stick around to the end, you definitely don't want to miss it. Secret 1, the financial freedom you've earned. Reaching financial independence later in life is one of the greatest accomplishments many of us strive for. After decades of hard work, planning, and saving, finally achieving the freedom to live life on our own terms without the weight of financial insecurity is nothing short of empowering. It's a well-deserved victory that many older adults cherish deeply. For the first time in years, they no longer rely on anyone else to support them. Whether it's a job, a spouse, or anyone else, they can spend money in ways that align with their desires, dreams, and priorities. But here's the thing, despite the relief and joy that comes with financial autonomy, it's something many hesitate to share with their children. For many older adults, the thought of revealing their financial independence to their children can stir up feelings of concern. The idea that their children might feel entitled to their hard-earned wealth is a genuine worry. It's not that children are greedy or demanding, but as we know, family dynamics can be complicated. Children may unknowingly assume that, because their parents are financially stable, they can begin to rely on them for support or even expect inheritance sooner rather than later. The truth is, some parents simply want to avoid putting that kind of pressure on their children. I recall a woman in her late 60s who had spent decades budgeting carefully, investing wisely, and building a solid financial foundation for her future. She was proud of her financial security, but when it came to discussing it with her grown children, she always hesitated. Why? She feared that they might slack off or stop working as hard, thinking they could lean on her wealth someday. She never wanted them to feel that they could count on her for financial help, even though she would have gladly supported them if the need arose. It wasn't about being selfish, it was about respecting her children's independence and not causing them to shift their focus away from their own financial goals. On the flip side, some parents also fear the anxiety their children might feel upon learning that their parents are financially secure. Children, especially those with their own families and responsibilities, may worry that their parents' wealth could run out, or they might begin to feel obligated to provide for them. This creates unnecessary stress that often does more harm than good. The last thing any parent wants is for their children to feel a sense of financial responsibility they never asked for. The financial independence that comes with age is not just about having enough money to live comfortably, it's also about having the freedom to make choices based on your values, without the influence or pressure of others. It's your hard work, your sacrifices, and your choices that have led to this moment of freedom. It's about enjoying your life without feeling guilty or worrying that others might expect something from you. While it may feel tempting to share the full extent of your financial security with your children, sometimes keeping it private is a healthier decision for everyone involved. It preserves your peace of mind and allows your children to continue on their own path without the added burden of worrying about your financial future. This isn't about hiding anything, it's about maintaining the boundaries that help everyone thrive. In a world where financial security is often tied to a sense of identity, protecting that autonomy and not feeling obligated to explain every aspect of your financial life can be empowering. It helps preserve the integrity of both your personal life and your relationship with your children. Letting go of expectations, yours and theirs, creates a space where everyone can continue to grow in their own direction. The freedom that financial independence brings is yours to enjoy. And sometimes, it's simply better to keep it that way. In the end, the real beauty of financial independence isn't just the wealth, it's the peace that comes with knowing you've earned the right to live your life exactly as you choose, without fear of judgment or unwanted expectations from those you love the most. Secret 2. Health issues they don't need to know about. As we get older, it's only natural that our bodies undergo changes, some small, others more significant. Whether it's the occasional ache in the joints, a recurring back pain, or more serious health concerns, these physical changes are a part of life. But here's the thing, while we might feel the need to share every detail with our children, sometimes it's better to keep certain health issues to ourselves. Why? Because, at times, revealing every little health concern can create more anxiety for everyone involved. Let me share an example. I had a neighbor, an older woman in her early 70s, who quietly dealt with early-stage arthritis. She would often limp or struggle to lift heavier items, but she never told her children about it. Why? Because she didn't want them to worry. She knew that if she revealed the truth, her children who loved her dearly would likely become overly protective, hovering over her every time she showed signs of discomfort. The last thing she wanted was for them to start treating her like she was fragile or incapable. They had their own lives to manage, after all, and she didn't want to add stress to theirs. It's a dilemma many older adults face. Do we share our health concerns and risk burdening our children? Or do we keep certain things private to maintain peace? And in many cases, the choice to keep health issues private isn't about hiding the truth. It's about managing our well-being independently while avoiding unnecessary worry for our loved ones. Often, children, no matter how well-intentioned, can become hyper-focused on their parents' health when they sense any sign of weakness. They may start seeing us as fragile or incapable, and that can change the dynamic of the relationship. The goal here is autonomy. By keeping certain health changes to ourselves, we maintain control over how we handle our health. We can manage minor issues privately and continue to live life as independently as possible without triggering stress or concern in our children. Take the example of my neighbor again. She was perfectly capable of managing her arthritis with medication, stretching, and exercise. She didn't need constant reminders from her children or the feeling that they were constantly worried about her every time she winced in pain. It's important to strike a balance. Of course, there are moments when sharing our health concerns is crucial, especially if the situation is serious or requires attention from a medical professional. But when it comes to minor issues, managing them privately can be empowering. It helps preserve our independence and ensures we're not overwhelming our children with worries they can't fix. I'm not suggesting we keep everything to ourselves, but there's value in being selective about what we share and when. Sometimes, managing a health issue on our own terms is a form of self-care. It allows us to maintain our dignity and sense of control, while also sparing our children from the burden of worrying about things that might not require their intervention. They likely already have their own challenges to deal with. And the last thing we want is to make them feel like they need to take care of us when we're still perfectly capable of doing so ourselves. In the end, sharing certain health concerns with our children should be done thoughtfully and selectively. Sometimes, keeping minor changes or discomforts private isn't about being secretive, it's about maintaining our independence, peace of mind, and, ultimately, protecting both our well-being and the emotional well-being of our loved ones. The goal isn't to shut them out, but to protect them from worrying about things that don't need to be a cause for concern. After all, we've earned the right to take care of ourselves on our own terms. And it's okay to share only what's necessary. Secret 3, the hidden joys of solitude. As we age, there's often an unspoken expectation that we should always be surrounded by family, friends, or other people. Society encourages us to stay busy, stay active, and always be engaged in some social activity. But the truth is, for many older adults, solitude doesn't mean loneliness, it actually means freedom. While the world around us might push for constant interaction, many seniors secretly find deep joy in the quiet moments of life. I've known several people in their 70s and 80s who have discovered that being alone isn't something to dread, it's something to embrace. One elderly friend of mine, for example, spent hours each day in her garden. She wasn't lonely. She wasn't isolated. She was content. Alone in the garden, surrounded by flowers and nature. She could finally be with her thoughts, reflect on her life, and simply enjoy the peace that came with solitude. It was her time to recharge, to connect with the world in a way that didn't require conversation or obligations. But she never shared this with her children. Why? Because she feared they would misunderstand. They might have seen her love of solitude as a sign of sadness or, worse, as an indication that she was isolated and disconnected. She didn't want to worry them, so she kept her moments of quiet joy to herself. This isn't an isolated case, many seniors feel the same way. They fear that if their children see them enjoying their alone time, they might assume something is wrong. They might worry that their parents are becoming lonely or detached. Even though nothing could be further from the truth, solitude isn't a sign of sadness or neglect. It's a sign of peace. It's a space where we can reflect, recharge, and reconnect with ourselves in ways we often can't when we're constantly surrounded by noise and distractions. For older adults, who have spent much of their lives caring for others or dealing with the pressures of work and family, solitude offers a much-needed reprieve. It's a time to slow down, to breathe, and to focus on what truly matters, without feeling the pressure to entertain anyone or live up to anyone's expectations. In fact, the ability to be content alone is a form of emotional strength. It shows a sense of self-sufficiency and fulfillment that many people never reach. It's not about avoiding others, but rather about finding joy in being with yourself. Whether it's reading a book in silence, gardening, knitting, or just sitting by a window watching the world go by, these quiet moments offer an opportunity to restore balance and peace. They provide a sanctuary where we can nurture our mental and emotional well-being without outside influences. Many seniors keep their love for solitude private because they don't want their children to worry. They don't want their children to think they're shutting themselves off from the world or becoming isolated. But the reality is, embracing solitude doesn't make us weak or lonely, it makes us stronger and more centered. It gives us the space to discover things about ourselves that we might not have known otherwise. It helps us stay grounded in who we are, separate from the expectations and demands of others. What's important here is recognizing that solitude, in its purest form, is a gift. It's an opportunity to focus on what brings us joy, to explore new hobbies, or to simply sit with our thoughts. It doesn't mean we're pushing people away, it just means we're prioritizing our well-being. And that's something that every adult, especially as we age, deserves. So, the next time you find yourself enjoying a peaceful afternoon alone, know that you're not isolated, you're indulging in a necessary, enriching part of life. Embrace it. It's your time to reflect, recharge, and reconnect with the most important person in your life, yourself. Secret 4, the real reasons behind lifestyle choices. As we age, it's not uncommon for our children to question some of the lifestyle choices we make. Decisions like downsizing our home, moving to a retirement community, or even choosing a more low-maintenance lifestyle might raise eyebrows. From their perspective, these decisions could easily be seen as signs that we need help or support. But often, the real reasons behind these choices are far more personal and, at times, more empowering than they may seem at first glance. Take, for example, a family friend of mine who decided to move into a smaller home in a quieter neighborhood. Her children immediately assumed that she made this move because she could no longer manage the responsibilities of a larger home or perhaps needed more assistance as she aged. However, the truth was quite different. She was perfectly capable of maintaining her home. What she wanted was something much simpler, a life with less upkeep, fewer responsibilities, and more peace. She had spent years managing a large property, dealing with lawn maintenance, repairs, and other demands that came with it. As she grew older, she realized that the constant maintenance had become a drain on her energy. She longed for a space that allowed her to focus on what really mattered to her: peace, comfort, and the freedom to enjoy her time without being constantly caught up in the demands of home ownership. It wasn't about needing help, it was about wanting to simplify her life. She made this decision not out of necessity, but out of a desire for a new kind of freedom. A smaller home meant less cleaning, fewer repairs, and more time for herself. It also meant she could live in a place that better matched her current lifestyle, closer to nature, perhaps, or in a location that felt more aligned with her values. She didn't need to explain all of this to her children. She simply made the choice that felt right for her. And sometimes, that's all that matters. These kinds of lifestyle choices are about reclaiming independence, making decisions that suit our needs and desires without feeling guilty about what others think. Older adults often reach a stage in life where they've earned the right to make decisions on their own terms, even if those decisions don't align with the expectations or assumptions of their children. It's about creating a life that feels authentic, one that reflects who we are now, not who we were in the past. It's about recognizing that as we get older, our needs, desires, and priorities shift, and that's completely okay. For some, downsizing isn't a sign of weakness or incapacity, it's a reflection of a clear desire to make life easier and more enjoyable. Moving to a retirement community doesn't necessarily mean that we can't care for ourselves, but rather that we want a community of like-minded individuals who share similar experiences and interests. It's a chance to engage in a lifestyle that suits where we are in life, not where we used to be. In fact, these choices often require a great deal of courage. It can be difficult to go against what others expect of us, especially when family members think they know what's best. But making these choices for yourself, whether it's moving to a new place, changing routines, or simplifying your living situation, is a declaration of autonomy. It's a statement that says, I know what I need, and I'm going to take the steps to get there. The key takeaway here is to respect these choices, both for ourselves and for others. Just because a decision doesn't make sense to others doesn't mean it isn't the right one for the individual making it. Older adults have earned the right to live authentically. They have the wisdom and experience to know what they truly need. And sometimes, that means making choices that reflect a more peaceful, manageable life rather than one filled with obligations and external expectations. So, the next time you see an older adult making a lifestyle change that seems unusual, take a moment to understand the deeper reasons behind it. It might not be about needing help or giving in to aging, it could be about choosing freedom, simplicity, and the opportunity to live the next chapter of life on their own terms. And in doing so, they're not just taking care of themselves, they're making a choice that allows them to enjoy the life they've worked so hard to create. Secret 5. Past regrets and mistakes. As we get older, it's only natural to reflect on the path we've taken in life. Regret is something that almost everyone carries with them. Whether it's a missed opportunity, a wrong decision, or a chapter of life they wish they could rewrite. These regrets are part of what makes us human. They shape us, they teach us, and they help us grow. But as older adults, there comes a time when we may choose not to share these regrets with our children. It's not because we're ashamed of them. It's because we don't want to burden them with the emotional weight of the past. I think about a senior I knew who carried a deep regret throughout her life. She had always dreamed of pursuing a career in the arts. But when the time came to make that leap, Life got in the way. Responsibilities, family obligations, and practical considerations led her to put her dreams on hold. Decades later, she still wished she had taken that chance. But she never spoke about it to her children. Why? Because she didn't want them to feel guilty or sad. She didn't want them to carry the weight of her unfulfilled dreams. Nor did she want them to think they had somehow contributed to her not following that path. Instead, she focused on the present. She chose to embrace the life she had built, finding joy in the relationships she had nurtured, the moments she had experienced, and the successes, big and small, that she had achieved. She had learned that sharing her regrets wasn't going to change anything, it wasn't going to undo the past, and it wasn't going to help anyone move forward. Instead, it might bring unnecessary pain and sorrow to her children, who were already living their own lives and working through their own challenges. The truth is, sharing past mistakes and regrets with loved ones can sometimes be more damaging than helpful. It can stir up emotions that no one, especially our children, need to carry. Yes, it's natural to reflect on our past and wonder how things might have turned out differently. But those reflections don't always need to be shared, particularly when the regrets no longer serve any meaningful purpose, when they've been worked through, when the lessons have been learned, and when we've come to terms with what happened. Keeping those regrets to ourselves isn't about hiding the truth, it's about protecting our loved ones from unnecessary pain. Think about it, our children, no matter how old they are, don't need to feel responsible for our past decisions. They don't need to feel that if they had acted differently, we might have made different choices. Sharing those regrets may unintentionally make them feel like they failed us. Or worse, that they need to fix things for us. The truth is, our regrets are ours to carry, and while we can learn from them, we don't always need to pass that emotional baggage on to others. The best way to approach regret is with a sense of acceptance. We can acknowledge the mistakes, learn from them, and then let them go. By doing so, we free ourselves from the past, and we allow our children to move forward with their own lives without the emotional weight of our unhealed wounds. It's a form of self-compassion, as well as compassion for the people we love. So, while it's perfectly normal to reflect on the past and wish we had done some things differently, it's also perfectly okay to keep those regrets to ourselves. Sharing them might bring unnecessary sorrow, and it's not always helpful for anyone to dwell on what could have been. In the end, what matters most is how we choose to live in the present. The past is gone, and it's time to focus on what we can control now: our happiness, our relationships, and the peace we can create moving forward. Secret 6: Personal Traditions and Habits. As we get older, many of us begin to find comfort in the routines and traditions we've developed over the years. These small, everyday rituals may seem insignificant to others, but they hold a deep meaning for us. Whether it's enjoying a quiet morning tea, taking a walk at sunset, or even listening to a favorite piece of music, these personal habits become our anchor in the rhythm of life. They are a source of peace, stability, and joy, and often provide a sense of continuity as we navigate the later years of life. For example, I have a friend in his 80s who spends hours every day reading historical novels. To his children, this might seem like a waste of time. They often ask him why he doesn't engage in more active pursuits or why he doesn't spend more time with the family. But for him, reading isn't just a pastime, it's a deeply personal tradition. It connects him with his past, bringing him closer to the history and stories that have shaped his life. Those quiet hours spent turning pages are more than just an escape, they are a way for him to engage with the world on his own terms, to reflect on the experiences and values that have guided him. The beauty of these personal habits is that they help define who we are. They are expressions of our identity. The quiet acts that give us joy and comfort in a world that is constantly changing. For many older adults, these rituals are also a way to preserve a sense of stability. As other aspects of life, health, family dynamics, and even social expectations shift, these small acts remain a constant, offering a sense of control and peace. They are often the things that help seniors feel grounded and connected to themselves, even when everything else may feel uncertain or beyond their control. By keeping these habits private, seniors can ensure that they are not judged or questioned for something that is deeply meaningful to them. For example, my friend with the historical novels doesn't feel the need to justify his love for reading to anyone. It's not something that needs to be understood or validated by others, it's simply something that brings him peace and comfort. These small, personal habits are a form of self-care, and by keeping them private, older adults can maintain a sense of autonomy over how they live their lives. Moreover, embracing these traditions, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, is a form of honoring oneself. It's a way of caring for our mental, emotional, and even spiritual well-being. In the hustle and bustle of life, it's easy to forget the importance of taking time for ourselves, to slow down and nurture our inner peace. But these small, consistent acts of self-care, whether it's reading, gardening, knitting, or simply sitting in silence, are not just hobbies. They are essential parts of who we are. They keep us balanced, grounded, and connected to the things that matter most. And so, while others might not understand why we prefer to take that quiet walk every evening or spend hours immersed in a book, it's important to remember that these personal habits are valuable in their own right. They give us a sense of purpose and identity that is not defined by the expectations or judgments of others. They provide comfort in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming, and they are a quiet reminder of the joy that can be found in simplicity. In the end, the traditions we create in our later years are a beautiful expression of self-care. They are moments of peace amidst the noise of life, opportunities to connect with ourselves and our history. These habits might seem small to others, but for us, they carry immense meaning, and by embracing them, we preserve not only our well-being but our sense of self in the face of an ever-changing world. Secret 7. The fear of becoming a burden. One of the most profound and often unspoken fears that many older adults carry is the fear of becoming a burden to their children. As we age, it's natural to experience physical and emotional changes that make us more dependent on others. Whether it's needing assistance with daily tasks, dealing with health issues, or simply facing the challenges that come with getting older, there's a quiet fear that we're relying too much on our loved ones, especially our children. This fear can be so deeply ingrained that many older adults keep it hidden, not wanting to cause their children any distress, anxiety, or pressure. I've seen this fear play out in the lives of people I know. Take, for example, an elderly woman I knew who was fiercely independent throughout her life. She had always taken care of herself, managing her home and health without relying on anyone else. But as she grew older, basic tasks like cooking and cleaning became more difficult for her. Her knees ached, her strength diminished, and she found herself needing help with everyday chores. Despite her struggles, she refused to ask her children for help. Why? Because she feared that asking for assistance would burden them. She didn't want them to feel obligated to take on the responsibility of caring for her. And she certainly didn't want them to think of her as someone who needed looking after. Even though her children would have gladly helped, and they repeatedly offered their support, she remained silent. She would continue to push through the discomfort, trying to manage on her own, all the while carrying the weight of this hidden fear. Her children didn't want her to struggle. They didn't want her to feel alone. But because she didn't want to impose on them, she kept her needs to herself. The reality, of course, is that her children wanted to support her. They loved her, and they understood that as she aged, her needs might change. But because of her fear of being a burden, she struggled alone, not realizing that accepting help wouldn't diminish her independence, it would actually strengthen their relationship. By allowing them to help, she could still maintain a sense of autonomy while also allowing her children to be a part of her life in a more meaningful way. This fear of being a burden is something that many older adults wrestle with. It's natural to want to retain as much independence as possible, But it's also important to recognize that needing help isn't a sign of weakness, it's part of the human experience. Everyone needs help sometimes. And that's okay. Asking for support doesn't diminish your dignity or sense of self, it enriches your connections with those around you and allows your loved ones to show you the same love and care that you've given them over the years. Maintaining independence while also being open to help when necessary is a delicate balance. But it's one that can make a huge difference in how we navigate the later years of life. It's about finding the courage to ask for what we need, without feeling ashamed or afraid that we're imposing on others. More often than not, our children want to help, they want to feel that they're there for us, just as we were there for them when they needed us. By accepting their support, we give them the opportunity to care for us in ways that feel good to them. And in turn, we foster deeper, more meaningful relationships. In the end, it's important to remember that asking for help doesn't make us a burden, it makes us human. We all need support at different stages of life. And that's something to embrace, not fear. It's okay to lean on your loved ones when needed. It doesn't take away your independence, it strengthens the bond between you. Your children would rather you ask for help than silently struggle. And ultimately, leaning on each other is what family is all about. So, there you have it, 7 secrets that many older adults choose to keep private. Not out of shame or deceit, but out of a deep desire to preserve their peace, independence, and emotional well-being. As we grow older, we don't have to share every detail of our lives with our children. Sometimes, keeping certain things to ourselves isn't about hiding the truth, it's about protecting our mental health and maintaining the dignity we've worked so hard to earn. We all deserve to navigate our later years on our own terms. It's okay to protect certain aspects of your life and your choices. It's okay to maintain boundaries that allow you to continue living in a way that feels right for you. And most importantly, it's okay to ask for help when you need it. Accepting support from loved ones doesn't diminish your strength, it enhances your connections and deepens your relationships. The journey of aging doesn't have to be a burden on anyone, it can be a time of grace, autonomy, and authenticity. So, embrace this time in life. Be true to yourself. Honor your choices. And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. You've earned it. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you love, because that's what really matters in the end.